Welcome. Come with me. The doctors will see you now.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Fast Talks with Family Docs. I'm Dr. Phil Palmer.
And I'm Dr. Veer Vidala.
And we're continuing on tonight with our conversation with Dr. Rachel Franklin. Rachel, thanks again for being with us. We talked in our last episode about patient advocacy, and that's clearly a priority for you. How do you make an effort to incorporate that in your clinical encounters with patients? And at this point in time, what is one or two of the most important advocacy priorities in your mind?
Wow. In my day-to-day with my patients, I want them to feel like this is a safe space. More than anything, the role of a family doc, I take so incredibly seriously. It is a sacred bond. It is a privilege and an honor to serve these patients. And I want their encounters with me to leave them lighter, leave them happier, leave them feeling heard. And that means that whatever they bring into the room, I want them to feel like they can do. Yeah. You know, I've been blessed to have a patient who cries in the room and then apologizes for crying. Yeah. And I say, you know, if you can't cry in the doctor's office, where can you cry? I mean, this is a safe place, right? So my advocacy begins with the patient with, you should expect that your physician, whether it's me or the specialist I send you to or whomever, has your best interests at heart and your interests as you define them, right? This is my patient's life and it's their experience, and I want to serve within that because I'm not going home with them. I can't help them beyond the four walls of the office, right? Mm-hmm. Then I take their stories and I think through the totality of folks' experience. And when I have the opportunity to teach a learner, which is why I came back to the university in the first place, is because, you know, you can do a lot of good for a lot of people in the course of a long career. That's amazing, and what an honor to be a family doc.
Yeah.
But if I get one learner that does one thing better because I taught them that, I've helped that many more people, right? So I take the advocacy in the same way, and I help learners see people's stories through our patients' eyes and through our patients' experiences. I also listen for what are the hardships and the barriers that they're experiencing that I can take to other people, because I'm not afraid to advocate. I don't mind having a difficult conversation. And if that means I put on my white coat and I march myself up to the Capitol and I say, look, my patient suffered this because of this barrier, and I need you to help me stop it.
Right.
Prior authorization reform was one of them, right? Make it easier. Make it so that AI can't deny them care, right? At least make it so that a fellow family physician has to look at that if they're going to tell me that they think they need to put a barrier in my patient's way, right? So my advocacy has always been about what makes my patients' lives easier. Yeah. And that's what I do each day.
Yeah, that's excellent. You remind me of the old analogy of a hungry person, and you can give that person a fish, or you can teach them how to fish. But I think, you know, when we look at advocacy, sometimes we see our role as going to the Capitol and dealing with legislators or interacting with other health policy entities, and tying into that old analogy of saying we need more lakes, we need to stock those lakes, we need to supply fishing poles to the community, and those are all true things. But we still need to not forget to teach our patients how to fish and to give them confidence in, even though you didn't get any bites today, go back and keep fishing again. And that's kind of what I heard from you as you interact with your patients, and your patient who comes in and cries is that's our role as docs, is to give that compassionate ear to whatever's going on in their life, and to try and give them hope as they go out of our office to continue to pursue and deal with what they're facing and continue to tackle that, whether it's a mental health issue or a physical health issue or a family relational struggle, whatever that may be, that's still just as an important of an advocacy role for that particular patient as it is going to the Capitol and trying to get laws passed. So.
Well, and as you extend your advocacy, one of the things that we are so blessed to have in our lives as family medicine docs is we hear the truth of everyone's personal experience.
Right.
If I still lived in Shawnee, Oklahoma, kid of a school teacher, in that community, I have one perspective. And each of us has our own perspective that we bring to medicine as well. But I have the opportunity to listen to 20, 25 stories a day. Right. And every person's perspective is their own, as mine is mine. And I can marinate in their perspectives, and I can share without it being inappropriate, obviously, but I can share my understanding of a broader lived perspective through the stories my patients tell me. And that way, when I go talk to a community leader or I go talk to someone else who we need to help us, I can say, I understand this isn't your experience, but let me tell you about my patient who lives over here, and the sidewalks aren't safe, and they just need a place that they can walk their dog. Right. We need a playground over here because the kids are sitting indoors all day. Yeah. I may never see that neighborhood, but I see it through the eyes of my patients and their stories.
Yeah, some people say, hey, you're born with the ability to have empathy. But I feel like it can be a learned skill.
Absolutely can.
Just
completely.
Sitting and listening to your patients, and every patient's an experience, listening to you talk about learners, Dr. Franklin, I think reminds me of if anything, what each patient brings you, it's a good way to remember your knowledge base too. You have one patient end up in the hospital with DKA from an SGLT2 inhibitor. You'll never forget that side effect.
Right.
And so, every patient's an experience. Thank you for giving that. That's just wonderful to hear. Making a little pivot here, Dr. Franklin. I never knew you wrote a book, and I was really excited to hear about this, and I had to go on Amazon and look it up.
You would be the only person who bought it this year.
It's available for purchase.
And do not take any advice from it. It is 20 years old. I can't believe you did that.
Right. But it's so cool because here's a family doc doing so many things. And now you write a book, right? And I heard the time, it took you and the preparation and the dedication for it. What inspired you to write this book? What are some key takeaways from the experiences? Can other family docs do it?
Answer final yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. It's like, can family docs do a podcast? Come on.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Well, so I found myself, I wanted children. My husband and I wanted children. We were fortunate to get pregnant, and when I was 17 weeks pregnant, we went for the What Is It ultrasound, and it was them. And I stopped breathing, and then I called my family doc, and I said, holy crud. And I was terrified because I deliver babies for a living. I know all the bad things that can happen, right? So now I'm in doctor mode, and doctor mode's not a good place to be when you're just trying to live your life, right?
That's right.
So everything that I could find online or in my journals or whatever was how you could die, and your baby could die, and everyone's going to die, and it's horrible, right? So I operate with a sense of humor. That's kind of how I bring myself back from things and how I engage with my patients. And there was just nothing out there at the time that provided accurate medical information, but without making you think that you were going to this was going to be a horrible experience.
Yeah.
So I ended up writing. I spent 3 nights a week while Ben kept these newborn twins at the house who are now 23 years old. And 3 nights a week, I'd go to Barnes & Noble and spend the evening writing and researching and doing all that sort of thing. And you have to find an agent first, and then you find a publisher. agent helps you find a publisher, and then you get an agreement that you can write the rest of the book, and so you write the rest of the book. It's the opposite way with fiction. There's a whole other thing. I haven't written any fiction yet, but anyway, so yeah, I ended up with a publisher from St. Martin's Press in New York City, and you think you know how to write? Oh, my word. Between my children's 6th grade grammar teacher and my New York City publisher, I became a really good writer.
That's so cool.
So, yeah, it was not a critical success. It was not a commercial success, but it was something that I felt was necessary to help people, feel better about a high-risk pregnancy. And the best review was from someone who ended up becoming a patient of mine later, who said it was the only book that she had read during her twin pregnancy that didn't make her want to join a convent.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Excellent. Well, Rachel, as we wrap up today, you've talked about advocacy. You've talked about opportunities you've had to impact individual patients, but then also to look at policy and interaction with healthcare entities and insurance entities. So what advice would you have for family docs early in their careers, or residents, medical students, since you have interacted across that spectrum of learners and physician trainees as well? Any words of wisdom you'd share for people starting off their career?
I will be stealing from many mentors of mine, but it has held true that as a family medicine physician, you are a core, critically important part of your community. We tend to put our heads down, see patients, work hard, take care of people, and at the end of the day, we wonder if we made a difference. We wonder if our voice is worth listening to. We sometimes feel helpless and unable to affect change. But I'm telling you, in your community, the family medicine physician knows everyone. Yeah. They advise people who put themselves on prayer lists or make life decisions or other kinds of things based on a 15-minute office visit. You, the minister in the faith community, and probably the police department have the most influence in the entire town. And it's not because of anything we necessarily want for ourselves. It's because everyone recognizes that what we are after is the health of our community, the well-being of the people that we care for. So if you feel the need to speak.
Yes.
And understand confidently that you will be heard. You may not get what you want, but your voice as the physician in your community matters. And if your white coat is still short, for any medical students that may be listening, it's still a white coat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And people still recognize and give some credence to the white coat. You are, in fact, caring for people, and people recognize that. So lean in. Call in those cards that you've been handing out, and do some good for your community.
Excellent words of advice. Yeah, I think sometimes it's easy even as medical students, but certainly as physicians, we've immersed ourselves so much in this and we've committed so much time, effort, and energy to learning that a lot of complex information seems natural to us, and it's relatively easy to us as the further you get in your career, and it feels like, well, I'm not doing that much, and no, you really are. You really are.
No, I tell my learners, for you, a 15 or 30-minute office visit is going to be something you've knocked on the door, you do your thing, you do all your complex medical knowledge stuff, and then you're done, and you go home, and people ask you how was your day, and you're like, oh, it was all right, it was fine, or I had a tough patient, or whatever, right? Your patients don't experience that the same way.
Yeah.
That 15-minute visit, truly, like I said, determines whether they decide to retire early or go on vacation or not, or change jobs or decide that their life is over. I mean, you can't possibly overestimate the impact that the interaction you have with your patient has on that patient, on their family, and on the community within which they live. And I don't mean that in a braggy, prideful way.
No.
It's an honor. It is a true honor to be their family medicine doc.
Yeah. And it's been an honor to sit and talk with you this evening. Thank you for your time and for being a part of our podcast. And viewers, listeners, thank you for your time as well. And we'll finish up today and look forward to seeing you next time on Fast Talks with Family Docs.
Thank you for joining us today. The doctors would like to see you back for another check-in. Please choose to follow our podcast and you will automatically be notified when it's time for your next appointment.